What's happening, man? Look, let's have a talk. You know that thing where I do a pregame and then I put that pregame out and then something else happens and then I end up talking about something else before I talk about the first thing? That's happening right now. So still, my research is kind of like branched into a few different a few different lanes, but they're like, it's like an interstate. It's like a huge highway, like an 8-lane highway, right? Still different lanes. They're just going in the same direction and they're like right next to each other. So, this is very fresh. And so I haven't had a lot of time to, do whatever it is I do. I don't know if I'd call it preparing because, I could be pretty scatterbrained, but I feel like I get to the points that I'm trying to get to usually. And if not, if I don't get enough time right now on this little break I got, I'll do a part 2. And I am still going to talk about the Dark Night of the Soul stuff because that's important to me. But this came up. So, amongst the epiphanies I'm having about what is below us, who is below us, and what that means, right? There's been some like realizations through stuff that I've put in the chat of a group I'm in. Both from so like realizations or epiphanies from me and from them and so on. We're just kind of like, working together, whether it's, someone says something, it makes me think of something or vice versa. First thing I'll say is many times when we think something is metaphysical, and to clarify, when I say metaphysical, I mean like extraordinary or, etheric, like something that is, not able to be explained by modern science or physics, right? Or, things that we're not familiar with. So we assume that it is some form of supernatural, cosmic, which I am less and less believing in that. Or, I'll say it's not what we think it is. Many times, though, those phenomena are just technology that we're not familiar with. And I'm starting to realize the many different versions of that. Like, someone just posted in the chat the video of the lightning hitting, and there's like essentially like an energy being, like an anthropomorphic energy being, has a god body, arm, leg, arm, head, but it's made of plasma. That's what it looks like, right? That's what it looks like. That's most likely a fucking suit. That's most likely a fucking suit. And as for the size of that being, it could be a projection. It could be, there's a lot of different explanations for what that could be versus calling it a god. Like, we're so technologically advanced in our minds, but we still look at shit and we're like, oh, fuck, it's a god. Or, it's the return of a god. Or, and I see that happening again. And I just realized as I'm talking right now, not even before this video, as I'm talking right now, I just realized one of those groups, one of those circles, not groups, one of those circles that I've left that's reawakening their spiritual side, that's a fucking psyop, bro. That's fucking crazy. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is the explanation of what I just said, right? There are beings below us that are not nearly as confused about where we are or what we are or how long it's been or what year it actually is. They know all that shit. At least far more than we do, right? And so whenever we start to get technologically advanced, or whenever a Phoenix event starts to approach, or, there's different reasons for why this might happen. Regardless, when we start to get to a certain plateau or level, they interfere. They do shit to make us forget or purposefully stop paying attention. Like, reawaken your fucking spirituality so that you stop paying attention to the technology, or you think it's spiritual shit. Do you understand what I'm saying? So all that shit with the many things that are going on with the spiritual community, I'm not trying to rob anyone of anything. But what I give a fuck about is truth. It doesn't have to rob you of your divinity. It doesn't have to rob you of shit, because I still believe many things that I've said in the past. I still believe of what I am. I still know what I am. And I still know what some of you are, my family. Regardless of that, though, you have to be able to see. You have to be able to see. So this spiritual awakening that's getting pushed down your fucking throat right now, that's intentional. That shit is intentional. And it's meant to make you see certain shit, and instead of being like, who the fuck is controlling that technology, you're like, shit, Kronos is back. El is back. Baal is back. Moloch is back. So that we don't fight. So that we don't, stand up for ourselves. Because the reality is, they can call us family, and they can call us children, or whatever the fuck they want to call us. But this isn't a good experience for many, many, many beings. And it's such a bad experience that many of us have started saying we're being fed on and attacked and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying that those things aren't happening, but what I am saying is the beings that are doing that shit are not as far away or as etheric as you think they are. They're fucking down there. Do you get what I'm saying? They're down there. And they have shit that you can't even fathom because you haven't seen it or heard of it before. Unless you watch fucking movies. Right? Unless you watch fucking movies and you take them a little bit more seriously than fiction. Books. Series. TV series. I keep saying it communicates through shit that it has very, very well established to you as not real. But it is fucking real. Doesn't always have to be, but most of the time they don't care. I'm not going to say they don't care about being creative, because that's not the point of what those things are, right? The point of why they make that shit is to implant real shit in your subconscious so that you can handle it when you see it, but you are already programmed with what to think it is, so that you don't use your own fucking noodle and say, that's technology, I'm under attack. Instead, you say, let me get on my knees and bow to you. Fuck that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that shit. And not trying to be aggressive, just I'm having epiphanies as I'm talking to you right now, and it's making me fucking upset because I have a very personal situation that I'm very tired of dealing with. Like, exhausted, you know? And it's something that many don't even want to acknowledge as being a real thing, despite the fact that there are patents that I and others have fucking posted, videos that I and others have posted, videos that have been on the fucking mainstream news, shit falling from the sky. Like, it's denial. It's gotten to a point where you don't get to call us conspiracy theorists anymore. You're pusillanimous. You're scared. You're fearful. And I usually say that's okay, but in this case, it's not. You're pussed out. Like, that's sad. You can say what you want about those of us that are paying attention, that are running experiments. I bought a fucking microscope. This shit bothered me so much. You know? You can say what you want, but you are wrong. You're wrong, and you're going to continue to be happy about being wrong until you need help. And then you're going to look at us and say, please help. And then we're supposed to do that. And that's not really cool to me. You know? That's not really cool to me. Because this shit is really messed up to deal with. And as much as same principle, you look at, beings that say they're being targeted for shit, and you call them names or say specific stuff about them. When this becomes more all-encompassing, and you catch up to some of the stuff that's happening to some of these other beings that are being brave enough to speak about this shit. And yeah, I'm talking about myself, but I'm more so talking about others that have confided in me after these videos. It's like, I kind of don't have nearly as much empathy for you. And I consider myself to not just have empathy, but be an empath. But I can choose to use that. I don't have to do that. I'll still feel it, but I can be like, you know what? You're one of those that essentially made life harder for us. You didn't just talk shit. You made life harder because those of us that are going through really intense stuff can't talk to anyone about it, can't go to doctors and all this other stuff because not enough of you are willing to even be open-minded to allow the rest to be comfortable enough to speak openly. So it seems like it's a conspiracy theory or there's not enough people going through it for it to be a real thing. And that you're helping them. You're helping them by doing that. So I don't know that I can muster that empathy once all this stuff starts. I don't know how to feel about that. And it really bothers me and messes with me because I want everyone to be okay. But the more that my research leads me to, the more that, I'm a being just like the rest of you are. And I won't even call this ego. This is an appropriate response. That turn the other cheek shit, I've never agreed with that. And I agree with it even less so now. So, I got so fed up. Like I said, I bought a microscope. I've got pictures and video of things that would fucking horrify many, many beings. There are patents. There are interviews. There are disclosures. There are debriefs. How many ways do they have to tell you that this isn't what you think it is before you stop running from it? I don't know. I don't know why it keeps coming around in this way, other than this is personal to me. I'm not just doing science or doing research into this shit. It's because it affects me. These things have affected me, and not just the graphene shit or black goo shit or I'm not going to name all the shit I've made videos about. That's why I have so much material, because this is not an isolated thing. None of it is isolated. It's very specifically easy for me to see because I'm living it. Others are living it. You know what I mean? Just because you're not doesn't mean shit to any of us. In fact, it's kind of starting to shape up in a way that I'm not necessarily happy about, but you're not helping. I'll say we're starting to look at it as if you're not getting bothered by anything at all, we kind of look at that as suspect. Because we're all being hit with stuff. Whether it be stuff that seems matrixy or metaphysical or whatever, or physical shit. There's a reason why I talk a little bit about metaphysical stuff, but if you notice, if you go back through my stuff, I tend to lean more on the physical side of things intentionally. Because I know how people can be, how beings can be about the metaphysical. And I used to get it, but now I don't, dude. There's ways to reconcile this shit in your mind. It's not, And it's usually like beings are straight up having contradictions. Like, you believe in an Abrahamic religion, but then when we start talking about this other shit, you're like, oh, that's fucking crazy. What the fuck is wrong? What? You know? It doesn't make any sense. And I think one of the reasons that I'm so upset right now is because I just watched a random video that I assumed was going to be like, it was going to have some like little consistencies in there, but like the alien predator pantheon, with specifically with the black goo, the ones that have the black goo in it, it's not inconsistent, it's completely consistent. They're just telling you what that is in those movies. Can confirm myself. I will tell you, they're just telling you what that is in those movies. Now, what I will say is, the formation of physical bodies, that's on a very small scale at this point. They call, Harold Kotz calls them insect fruiting bodies. The pictures that I have on my platforms, those are insect fruiting bodies from under my own microscope. So I'm vouching for that myself. That is not science fiction. There are programmable nano-anthrobotic technologies that have been released. And I think that people get stuck when it's called programmable, including myself, because when we hear programmable, we think like some nerds in a science lab or in a factory that make iPhones, or, you know, maybe they make Teslas or AI or some shit. That, I don't think that's what it means when it says programmable. I think, for one, it's not really programmable, it's sentient. That's one thing. I think that it programs smaller versions of itself, like kind of a, I don't want to fucking say Borg, dude, but I don't have another word, you know? Hive mind, I guess, but that... do hive minds have queens? I don't know. It's much like that, though. It's like a bee's nest, or like an ant nest. There is a being or a small group of beings that actually think. The rest of it just does what those say. That the shit gets deep. I think I'm just gonna have to do like an actual black goo video again, because my understanding of what that is has doubled. And I thought I really understood it before. I was already talking about Harold Kotz and his work into it, and the many different aspects of what it can be used for, because it's ridiculous how much shit it can be used for. But that's not all. You know, a few months later, it's been what, maybe 3 months? A few months later, and it's like a completely different subject. Where I thought it's coming from, not here, down there, coming from down there. Same as the rest of the shit. Like, it never made sense to me that the fucking idiots that we see, you know, doing politics stuff, and they're essentially just actors, dude. They're not usually intelligent beings, and they're all products of like either, you know, cloning technology or incest is what they generally come from. It never made sense to me that they're pumping out fucking all these crazy ideas and technologies and shit. And you know what? They're not. It's coming from down there. Those are puppets. Those are sleight of hand. Look over here while they're actually over there somewhere. Even the throne stuff, like those might be, you know, the 13 families and the thrones and the Windsors and shit. That might all be like bloodline stuff. But they're not the one, like many of us that are seasoned say, those aren't the real ones. Those are who they give you to look at. Just like with the Pope. The Pope is not the real one in control of the Roman Empire. There's a video of him kissing the real, you know, puppets' feet, because they're puppets too. Like, This is completely different from, and it makes sense that it would be. I start at the beginning of this. I think I knew enough. I think I thought I knew enough to where I could start a channel and talk about these things with, not certainty, but with confidence. And the more research I've done, both scientific, meaning physical science and chemistry and stuff like that, and research into history and anthropology and all mythology and all these things, I fucking didn't know shit, dude. This is weird. And the funny thing is, the beginning of what you tell people when you talk about these things, they call that conspiracy. But those are all given to you things. So, like, now that I'm starting to talk about the shit that the actual research is leading to, I don't expect anyone to get it. And I'm posting receipts, but I think that even though I post those receipts, I just put up on Instagram and my YouTube pictures from my own microscope of the same shit that's in those patents that I posted. Programmable graphene, if they want to call it that, whatever. I think that's kind of like a cover for the fact that it's kind of sentient. The technology to essentially control nanobotic and anthrobotic micro, graphenes. Like, that's what those pictures are. And they are aggressive. They crawl, scratch, bite, jump, and fly. And under a microscope, the way that they look doesn't look like insects necessarily. It looks like it's like if you discovered a new insect. You'd be like, I've never seen that before, but since I see it moving around and I witnessed it try to eat this other thing, like, all these experiments I did it was kind of horrifying watching this shit, to be honest, but it's different when you see it for yourself. I understand how it could potentially sound, but the reality, you have to get past that. That's why they do that. They set things up in a way to where you hear something and you're so taken aback by it, or it sounds so far-fetched that you're like, you're crazy, or that's fake. This is going to keep progressing until you cannot deny it anymore, and then you're going to be like, fuck. And you're going to be way behind, because this is shit. I mean, potentially everyone needs to be kind of detoxing for it. And there's little rumblings of that, but they'll say you need to be detoxing the spike protein. Sure, if you feel like, if that's what you want to call that, and start doing something about it to get this shit out of your body, then call it a spike protein. I don't give a fuck. Call it whatever you need to call it. It's not good, and it's very likely within you, because food, water, sky, that shit, that's the lines in the sky, right? All that, same thing. It's a blanketed campaign to do one thing. And the pokes, right? The pokes, all same thing. All the same shit. So, it behooves you to, if you want to call it a spike protein or a parasitic infection, which it technically is, this isn't new. Like, they didn't just come up with this shit. They have the patents that make it look like it's new. But, okay, so for instance, the beginning of the Black Plague was not what was taught to us. What was taught to us was some infected rats that came from China. That's not how the fuck that happened. There's an account. There's a very public historical account of meat falling from the sky, and then they started getting sick. Meat fell from the sky, and then they started getting sick. What's that sound like? You know? Red dust falling from the sky, and then they started getting sick. Oh, and the red dust that I keep coming across in the Phoenix events and the 1902s and the delusions and shit. What, has anyone seen those videos of that red looking ice and water in Antarctica? Or the red, like, blood that's in, Egypt? That's supposed to be like one of the the prophecies of the Bible. Strange, right? Looks like blood. Red dust. Technology, bruh. Like, it's just tech. It's bioweapons and technology, and I won't just call them weapons because it seems that sometimes within these historical accounts, it's like terraforming shit. It's not necessarily like meant to kill you, because the red dust doesn't seem like it killed many people. In fact, there were fucking pigeons. Excuse me. There were pigeons eating it that didn't die. So there's some of this shit is like terraforming stuff. I honestly can't understand what it is that they're doing. You know what I mean? I just know there's enough of it that I don't fuck with, if that makes sense. And I will say, when I do go to attempt like to get answers, I'm not just gonna immediately start fucking shit up. Just I'm gonna have a very, very short temper, like a very, very short, not attention span, but like you're not gonna have long to answer my questions before I feel a different way. You know, that's how I'm viewing it. But yeah, the red dust or the red mist and shit like that, that's happening right now. It has been for a very decent amount of time. I think it's been years that shit's been just flowing into the ocean, both in the Antarctic and in Africa and other places too. That happens randomly. And then also, another thing that came up in my mind is like the concept of Jesus, right? He was buried and then 3 days later he arose, right? Where was he buried? Where was Jesus buried? How'd they bury him? Did they put him in a cave system and then close that cave up so no one could see what he was doing? Because is it potentially another explanation that maybe he went to the halls of Amenti, the portals of Amenti, and went somewhere and was bestowed some shit and then came back 3 days later? Is that also possible? You know? Just all this shit is starting to fucking boop, 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 and it sucks. It just feels like being lied to. And I think it's compounded. I don't really do a lot of talking about that, other lives stuff, because I don't remember if that's true. If that is true, I don't remember any of that. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm just going to say I don't remember any of that. That's the intention of how it works. So good on you. You got me good. Others seem to remember it, and it seems like some of it has checked out before. I don't know which beings were able to like say, hey, I was this person and I did this, and this in a way that's actually provable. But I have to believe that that's happened a couple times. In fact, I'm going to look into that. But what I will say is this feels in a way that makes me so upset that it feels like I'm responding for more than just this go round, if that makes sense. I've said that before, but it just feels that way. I don't know how to explain that any better. I don't feel like I should need to. That seems pretty straightforward. What the fuck? What the fuck is this? You know? And then, not to make it super personal, even though I've made a lot of this personal, who gives a shit? The stuff with my dad, like, does that guy know shit that he's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that guy fucking know shit since he's a part of one of those kind of management groups, essentially? I know you gotta make it up a certain number of levels, and it's not 33, it's fucking 99. So I don't know where he would be on that. It's been a very long time, so I would imagine somewhere up there. That was since I was a kid, and I'm about to be 40 in a few years, So That's weird. Yeah. I don't know. I'm having a lot of like breakthroughs and epiphanies as far as my research goes. And like I wanted to show that I'm not just talking shit, dude. Like I am actually researching and I am actually doing experimentation on certain aspects of this to understand this better. So if you haven't seen the compilation of pictures that has music behind it, that's essentially what the reel is. Some of the connections that I made in that reel, I don't think many people will get, but maybe you will. I don't fucking know. But there are also pictures on the YouTube in the community section, I think. Or I also made a short there. But anyway, like, that's just a few of many, 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 many pictures for documentation and video that I took of shit on my own microscope. You know? I know I pre-gamed for some other shit earlier, but as you can see, I got very upset. So, I don't know that I have more than that right now. I'm still going to talk about the Dark Night of the Soul. I'm still going to talk about the Dark Night of the Soul. That'll be a separate video so that, you can fucking, I don't know, skip this if this isn't important to you, that would be fucking weird to me. Because this isn't just a me thing. I think that's why this bothers me so much also, is because I get that one of the things that hasn't made sense to me is, dude, there are beings that feel this shit. Like, they feel stuff moving on them. It's called, like, Morgellons. And they go to doctors. They have shit removed from their bodies and stuff. But then others feel zero. And that didn't make sense to me until very recently. I think a good bit of how to explain that is the whole, and I don't like the word, but the easiest way to say it is NPC stuff. But like the layered consciousness, the leveled consciousness. So I think that those that can just see, I think that those are the foremost targets. Or affected. Let's say affected. I don't know about targets necessarily, because it seems like this is just, for the most part, just let out. I think there are beings that are targeted, but I think they're few and far between. But the secondary, those that can see if they're shown, I think those are far less affected. And so maybe you do feel something, but you think it's just like a little itch and you scratch it, or, maybe you think you have, I don't know, fucking scabies or some shit. But those that can't see at all, I don't even think that they have it or not have it. I don't think that they like notice or feel anything. But I don't know. I think I'm going to research this more in a way that is not as much like this as I can. And then also, so I guess there's probably 2 more videos coming. But yeah, man, worth thinking about. Okay, I love you. Bye.